I always see people recommend Davinci Resolve for beginners because it's free, it's powerful. Look at these Hollywood movies, they color graded on it, it's professional. But I actually don't think it's the best software for most beginners. When I was starting out on Resolve, or really just as an editor, I was probably looking like someone that is above the age of 70 trying to figure out how to properly download RAM to their computer. It was probably an understatement to say that I was confused. Like, everything was just so complicated. There's a lot of buttons, there's a lot of sets of buttons, and at one point I did, and I'm sure a lot of other people are in the same boat, completely stopped trying to even learn Resolve because it was just so overwhelming to get into. I've used pretty much every single video editing software I can think of other than Avid Media Composer, but I hope that would be the case considering I work for YouTubers and not Hollywood. And also about 6 years ago now, I was a beginner and I had no clue how to do anything. And I think for non-professional or beginner video editors, it's too complicated. So I'll go into the softwares that I would generally recommend people and also who I think Davinci Resolve actually is the best for. And just because the software itself does have a completely free version, that doesn't mean that the hardware you need to run it is cheap. And I found that out the hard way. Like, I think back in 2020, I was using a 2012 MacBook. It did open up Resolve and it ran it, or should I say walked it, because it barely ran it. And then like a year later, I built a PC, which actually ran Resolve decently until it just stopped opening completely. I still don't know what happened there. But I do think like today, like 4 or 5 years later, there are a lot more devices that actually can run it smoothly. I've seen creators use M3 and M4 MacBook Airs, which you can get for $800 to $1,000. But there's this idea of the best software and then the best software for you. Like, let's say you have a powerful enough computer to run Resolve. Like, I think it's easily the best free software. Like, I've only used the free version. I've never needed to actually pay for the studio version, but there is that upgrade path if you ever need it, which is not a subscription. It is a one-time payment, which I am definitely a fan of. And it's not just a good software, it's a professionally used software. It's like the industry standard for color grading. Like, a lot of Hollywood movies use Davinci Resolve to color grade. And especially recently, I've noticed a lot more demand for Davinci Resolve for like freelance social media gigs and like YouTube videos. And I'd also say that they're in the lead as far as updates and adding like AI features that are actually useful. And because of the recent growing popularity, there's a lot of community support. And what I actually love is their hardware. They have like color grading panels, some more expensive and some that are actually reasonable. And then also things like speed editors and a lot of tools that can make editing smoother. Like, it is actually the best. And after all of that, it might seem crazy to not recommend this. But again, this is my point. Just because it is the best doesn't mean it's the best for you. I've used all of the big 3 editing softwares for paid gigs, which are Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, and Davinci Resolve. And even though I know how to use what I do consider the best software, being Davinci Resolve, for my own videos here on this channel, I still use Final Cut Pro. And I think this kind of leads into the boat that I think a lot of people are in. Just because you need to edit a video doesn't mean that you want to be a video editor. And I think that's especially true when it comes to something like social media. Most people just don't need professional tools to make their videos. And that's because generally you don't actually need complicated editing to make a good video. So this is one of my videos I edited in Davinci Resolve, and let's say we wanted to have a little TV effect on this screenshot here. If you go to the effects and look up like TV, nothing really comes up. So then naturally you have to go into the Fusion tab, which absolutely scared me until about 4 months ago when I actually decided to learn it. You look up TV and there you go. You kind of have a TV effect. But then look at all these settings. There's controls, there's noise, there's the roll bar, there's scan lines, skew, amplitude, frequency. There's all these different settings that if you just wanted a simple little effect, it suddenly becomes not so simple. Now in Final Cut Pro, if I wanted to do the same thing, you go to the effects, look up TV, bad TV, drag it, and now you can adjust one main slider that is just amount. There's more bad TV effect and less bad TV effect. I think for a lot of people and even a lot of creators, they're just editing as a part of the creative process. And again, they don't want to be a video editor, so they might lean more towards something like Final Cut. And I even think for beginners, they might lean more towards Final Cut because you're able to get effects that are relatively cool pretty simply while still really just being able to focus on and get used to how to move around in editing software and add clips and cut clips and really just the basic stuff that I think is actually more important, instead of being in Resolve and figuring out how to exactly dial in the proper skew of your TV node in Fusion. See, like that just sounds like gibberish. But again, there are certain types of beginners that I would recommend Resolve to. And if you're one of them, since it's growing in popularity, there are a ton of tutorials on how to learn this stuff, and they can probably explain it better than I ever could. I mean, just being honest here, I only learned this because of those tutorials. And I'm a believer of just using the tools that you know how to use, but having all this extra stuff can sometimes be kind of distracting and finding the tools that you need to use in the first place. Let's say you want to keyframe something. You want this little screenshot to go from small to bigger. Now, I just made that very simple animation on the edit page. But what a lot of people are gonna say is the Fusion page is where you do animations. And shocker, you can do the same exact thing in the Fusion page as well. If you add a transform node, you can add a keyframe to scale, lower it a little, skip ahead a few frames, make it bigger, like that. And you did the same exact thing, just in a totally different page. What about like a simple color adjustment, like adding contrast? See, here's one way to add contrast. There's one slider. But if you go to the HDR, oh, there's another contrast slider right here, but it's on the bottom. And the HDR contrast slider actually works differently than the regular primary wheel contrast slider. Or, you can hit it with the good old curves, which this is in most softwares, which is always good to have some sense of familiarity. But then you're like, oh, wait a minute, back in the primaries, what's just log wheels? Oh, there's a whole nother contrast slider. The point I'm trying to drive home here is there are so many ways to do the same exact thing. And I think sometimes by having all of the different tools on different tabs instead of everything all in one, like in Final Cut, that's either gonna click with you immediately and make perfect sense, or it's not. And I know for me, it didn't. And I prefer just to have all of the tools on one page. And again, it depends on what you need the software to do. Like, not everyone needs VFX and 3D stuff, which you can accomplish in Fusion. Not everyone needs professional color grading, which Resolve definitely offers. I think Final Cut is inferior to Resolve in both of those categories, but it's still what I end up choosing just because it's so much easier to get close to the result that you want. So I agree that it's good to not feel limited in your software. That's very important, but at the same time, when there are limits, sometimes that's a good thing because there's less options to choose from when actually trying to create something. So more of your time is actually just spent on creating the way you know how to. It matters a lot less about what popular movies use your software to grade things or what you can actually achieve in it. It matters more how well it can work for you. I think the most important editing tool is the cut, which every single editing software has. So my number one recommendation would actually be the desktop version of CapCut, which is an incredible software. If it wasn't for their weird legal stuff. They just came out with something saying whatever footage you import to their software, they actually have legal rights to run in advertisements or whatever. So that's really sketchy and not cool. It's a very simple but also incredibly capable software with a lot of things similar to Final Cut Pro. But a lot of those features they actually just put behind I think it's like a $200 a year paywall, that's getting into Adobe Premiere price range. And I might be biased because I like it, but if you are on a Mac, there's a 90-day free trial for Final Cut Pro. I can put the link in the description if you want. But the full price of Final Cut is a one-time payment, but it's $300 or $200 if you're a student. If you really don't need anything complicated at all, there is iMovie, especially on the desktop. It's actually good enough if you just need to cut together a few clips, add a song and maybe a title. But I do think if you find a software that works best for you, it's worth paying for it if you can afford it, of course. I think it's actually crucial that the software kind of works the way you think it works. Like if you move something around a certain way, it actually works the way you had in mind. It's like being on the same page with like an employee or assistant or something. Like the last thing you want is the tool you're using to feel like it's working against you, which is why for me, Final Cut works really well, like with the magnetic timeline, which is kind of different than any other software. And also how it makes it actually impossible to overwrite clips. If you drag something on top of a clip, it just goes above it instead of other softwares where it completely overwrites it. But I do have two recommendations for like fully free softwares, and that is Kdenlive and OpenShot. Okay, pause. I said OpenShot, but I actually meant to say Shotcut. OpenShot is a free software, but it's pretty much just like iMovie level of basic.
Shotcut actually has a lot of useful features and is also free.
I mean, those are both like surprisingly capable softwares, and I'd actually be comfortable enough to edit my own videos on that, and I actually don't think there'd be too much of a drop off of quality. Actually, if you want to see that, let me know. I would do that. But there are a few really good paid options if you are looking to spend a bit of money. Like Filmora actually has like a lot of unique, cool effects that, again, if you're one of those people that are just trying to edit something together and not be a professional, it's actually perfect for that. And I think it's popular for those people too. Now, Adobe Premiere Pro could be a little overwhelming, not just technically editing wise, but financially. That is an expensive software. But Adobe actually has Premiere Elements, which is a $100 one-time payment, and it is a much simpler but still really, really good software. Actually, a creator that I used to work for using Premiere Pro, whenever he had to edit something on his own, he used Premiere Elements, and that did not stop him from succeeding, as we can clearly see.
No matter what software you start on, I think it's important to focus on the basics that can make or break a video.
So I think the best software for you isn't always the one that's most talked about or the one that's capable of doing the most for free. I think it's the one that fits your needs the best. Like, the editing software you use doesn't matter. It's what you're editing that does. But yes, I do think Resolve is the best software, and even for some beginners, you should learn it.
And Davinci Resolve has such a high ceiling for everything, like cutting, animation, some 3D, color grading, and audio mixing.
I think if you are looking to become a professional editor, whether it's like corporate or freelance or social media or even like short films or film, you should learn Resolve, as long as you can withstand that initial what is going on when you first open the software. I think go for it, and I think it will pay off later down the road.
And now with so many different tutorials and support, I don't think it's a matter if anyone can learn Resolve. I just think not everyone needs to, at least right away.
But those are just my thoughts. If you think Resolve is the best for all beginners, then I mean, go for it. It is a very powerful software. Like, I think it is the best, but I also think sometimes it can be a little too much for what people actually need, and it just creates more headaches than it solves. But anyways, thank you for watching if you still are, and if you want more, feel free to subscribe.